There's a strange kind of tiredness people don't really talk about. It's not physical. It's not the kind you fix with sleep. It's the kind that shows up when you've been trying to get your life together for a long time and somehow things still feel the same. You wake up, you go to work, you handle your responsibilities. From the outside, everything looks normal. But internally, there's this quiet thought that keeps coming back. Why does it feel like I'm not moving forward? Not stuck exactly, just not progressing. Like you're running, but the ground beneath you isn't changing. And when it comes to money, that feeling becomes even heavier because money is supposed to be measurable. It's supposed to show progress clearly. More in, less stress. Simple. But for some reason, it doesn't feel that way. You work, you earn, you spend, and then somehow you end up in the same place again. Not broke in a dramatic way, but not secure either, just constantly in between. Now here's the part that makes this confusing. You're not careless, you're not reckless, you're not someone who's completely out of control. In fact, there are moments where you try. You think about saving. You tell yourself, this time I'll manage it better. And for a few days, maybe even a week, you actually do. You're more aware, more careful, more intentional. And it feels good, like something is finally shifting. But then life happens. Not in a dramatic way, just normal life. A sudden expense, a family need, a moment of stress where you just don't have the energy to think. And slowly, you slip back. Not because you decided to fail, but because maintaining control takes energy, and energy isn't always available. This is where most people misunderstand their situation. They think the problem is discipline. They think if I was just more focused, more strict, more consistent, things would finally change. But that assumption carries a hidden pressure, because now every outcome feels like a personal failure. If things don't work, it must be because you didn't try hard enough. And that belief quietly drains you. Because deep down, you know you are trying. Maybe not perfectly, maybe not constantly, but you're not doing nothing. So why does it still feel like nothing is changing? The answer isn't comfortable, but it's honest. You're not failing because you lack discipline. You're struggling because your life requires discipline just to stay in place. Think about that for a second. Not to grow, not to improve, just to not fall behind. Every day, money is being pulled from you, not aggressively, not in one big hit, but gradually, quietly, consistently. Bills don't wait. Expenses don't pause. Life doesn't slow down just because you're tired. So even maintaining the same position requires effort. And when effort becomes the minimum requirement, progress becomes extremely difficult. This is the real trap. It's not that you're doing something horribly wrong. It's that the structure around you is constantly demanding more than it gives space for. And over time, that creates a very specific kind of behavior. You stop thinking long term, not because you don't care, but because long-term thinking feels unrealistic. You start focusing on what's immediately in front of you, what needs to be paid, what needs to be handled, what needs to be solved right now. And slowly, your entire financial life becomes reactive. You're not directing your money, you're responding to it. Now here's where things get deeper, because this isn't just about money anymore. It's about how your brain adapts to pressure. When you live in a constant state of financial tension, your brain shifts into survival mode. Not panic, just constant alertness. And in that state, your priorities change. You don't think about optimization, you think about relief. You don't think about future stability, you think about present comfort. That's why small spending decisions feel justified, because in the moment, they are justified. You're tired, you're stressed, you want a break. So you choose something that makes you feel slightly better. Food, convenience, a small purchase. Nothing extreme, nothing irresponsible, just human decisions. But here's the problem. When every decision is made to reduce current stress, your future quietly absorbs the cost. Not in one big way, but in small, repeated ways. And those small repetitions shape your reality. Now, if you zoom out and look at this objectively, you'll notice something important.
You're not stuck because of one big mistake. You're stuck because of a consistent pattern. A pattern where money comes in, life immediately absorbs it, stress builds, energy drops, decisions become reactive, and the cycle repeats. That's the system. And systems are powerful because once you're inside one, you don't need to actively choose it anymore. It just runs. This is why motivation doesn't fix the problem. You can feel inspired for a few days. You can try harder for a week. But if the system stays the same, you eventually return to the same outcome. Not because you failed, but because the structure didn't change. This is the turning point most people never reach. They keep trying to improve their behavior without adjusting the system their behavior exists in. And that's exhausting. Because now you're fighting your own environment every single day. So let's shift the perspective. Instead of asking, how do I become better with money? Ask something different. How do I make this easier on myself? Because right now, everything about your financial life is happening after the fact. You earn first, then you decide, then you react. But by the time you're reacting, most of the important decisions have already been made. Life has already claimed its share. So what if you changed the timing? Not the amount, not your entire lifestyle, just the timing of your decisions. What if some decisions happened before life got involved, before spending, before reacting, before stress took over? This is where things start to shift. Not dramatically, but meaningfully. Because when decisions move earlier, they require less emotional energy. You're not deciding under pressure. You're deciding with clarity. And clarity creates consistency. Now here's something subtle but powerful. When even a small part of your money is decided in advance, it stops feeling temporary. Right now, money probably feels like it passes through you. It comes in, and then it's gone. There's no sense of stability, no sense of accumulation, just movement. But when something starts staying, even a little, your perception changes. You begin to feel like you're holding something. Not much, but enough to notice. And that feeling is incredibly important because it reduces uncertainty. And uncertainty is what creates most of the stress around money. When you don't know if you're okay, everything feels heavier. But when there's even a small sense of security, your entire mindset shifts. You think more clearly. You act more intentionally. You feel less rushed. And over time, that compounds. Not in a dramatic overnight way, but in a steady, almost invisible way. Now let's talk about identity for a moment, because this is where things either lock in or start to change permanently. If you've spent a long time feeling financially unstable, it becomes part of how you see yourself. I'm just someone who struggles with money. I can't really get ahead. This is just how things are. These thoughts don't feel like beliefs. They feel like observations, but they shape your behavior in quiet ways. You expect things to fall apart, so you don't fully trust progress. You assume setbacks are normal, so you don't resist them as strongly. And slowly, you start living in alignment with that identity. Not consciously, but consistently. Changing this doesn't require motivation. It requires evidence. Small moments where things go differently. A week where nothing falls apart. A decision that actually sticks. A situation where you don't have to start over. Those moments seem small, but they're powerful because they challenge your internal narrative. They show you that maybe you're not as stuck as you thought. And once that belief starts to shift, your behavior follows. Not because you're forcing it, but because it finally feels possible. Now let's bring this back to reality, because none of this matters if it doesn't translate into real life. In real life, this doesn't look extreme. It doesn't mean cutting everything out. It doesn't mean tracking every rupee. It doesn't mean becoming obsessed with money. It just means creating a little structure where there was none before. A little separation, a little clarity, a little intention. enough to reduce chaos, not eliminate it. Because chaos never fully disappears. Life will always be unpredictable, but your response to it can become more stable. And that stability is what changes everything. Because once you're stable, you can build. Without stability, everything resets. So if you feel like you've been trying for a long time and nothing is sticking, don't jump to the conclusion that something is wrong with you. Look at the system. Look at the patterns. Look at the timing. Look at where decisions are being made. Because there's a very high chance you're not failing. You're just operating inside a structure that was never designed for you to win easily. And the moment you adjust that structure, even slightly, things begin to change. Not loudly, not dramatically, but noticeably. You feel a little less pressure, a little more control, a little more space to think. And that space is where better decisions are made. So no, the real reason you're still broke isn't just about money. It's about pressure. It's about timing. It's about systems. It's about the quiet patterns running in the background of your life. But the good news is, patterns can change. Not instantly, not perfectly, but gradually. And gradual change is still real change. So take a breath. You don't need to fix everything today. You don't need a perfect plan. You just need one small shift that makes things slightly easier than they were yesterday. And then you repeat that, slowly, calmly, without pressure. Because progress doesn't come from intensity. It comes from consistency that you can actually sustain. If this made you think differently about your situation, go ahead and like the video, not just for support, but so it reaches someone else who's quietly dealing with the same pressure. And I want to ask you something, honestly. Do you feel like you're trying, but nothing is sticking? Or do you feel like you've started to build something stable? Drop a comment, even one line. I read every single one. I'm Mike, this is Wealthvault, and I'll see you in the next one.